Washington, you need to come with us. Step away from the children.
I'm in the middle of teaching. Who are you? What is this?
Federal agents, we have questions about your immigration status. Come with us now.
Immigration status? I'm a teacher here. I'm an American citizen. You can't just walk into my classroom.
Ma'am, we're not asking. You're coming with us for questioning.
Vanessa Washington had been teaching 4th grade at Oakwood Elementary School for 12 years, and in all that time, she'd never missed a day, never raised her voice in anger, and never imagined that a normal Wednesday morning math lesson would end with her being led out of her classroom in handcuffs. While 23 9-year-olds watched in confused terror, the federal agents' body cameras capture everything. The entry into the classroom without authorization, the disruption of the fractions lesson, the tears on children's faces, and the moment when a beloved teacher was treated like a criminal in front of the students she dedicated her life to educating. That footage, recorded from 3 different body cameras worn by the agents, would become the centerpiece of a lawsuit that would expose how federal enforcement priorities could override common sense, basic decency, and the welfare of children, ultimately resulting in a $15.8 million verdict that would change protocols nationwide, but could never undo the trauma inflicted on a classroom full of 4th graders. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Vanessa Washington had wanted to be a teacher since she was 7 years old. Inspired by her own 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who had seen potential in a shy girl from the south side of Chicago and had nurtured it with patience and encouragement, Vanessa had carried that inspiration through high school, through her undergraduate degree at Illinois State University, through her teaching credential program, and into her first classroom assignment at Oakwood Elementary in the western suburbs of Chicago. Now, at 37, Vanessa was exactly the kind of teacher every parent hoped their child would get. Patient, creative, demanding but fair. The kind of educator who stayed late to help struggling students, who paid for classroom supplies out of her own pocket, who remembered every child's birthday and their individual challenges and strengths. Her classroom was a warm, welcoming space with student artwork covering the walls, a reading corner with bean bags and bookshelves she'd built herself, and a culture of respect and curiosity that made even the most reluctant students want to learn. Wednesday morning started like most others. Vanessa arrived at school at 7:15 a.m. A full 45 minutes before students would arrive to prepare for the day. She wrote the morning's objectives on the whiteboard, arranged manipulatives for the math lesson on equivalent fractions, and set out the reading journals for their literature discussion after lunch. By 8 a.m., students were filtering in, hanging backpacks on hooks, settling into their seats, chatting about the soccer game from the previous night and the upcoming field trip to the Science Museum. The morning routine was comfortingly predictable. Attendance, Pledge of Allegiance, morning announcements from Principal Rodriguez over the intercom, calendar math, and then into the day's first lesson. By 9:15 a.m., Vanessa's students were engaged in a hands-on fraction activity, working in pairs with colored tiles to visualize equivalent fractions, the kind of kinesthetic learning that helped abstract concepts become concrete. Vanessa was circulating among the pairs, answering questions and monitoring understanding. When she heard her classroom door open, she looked up, expecting to see a parent volunteer or maybe the school secretary with a message, but instead saw 3 people in tactical vests marked HSI entering her classroom without knocking, without checking in, without any of the normal protocols that visitors to the school were required to follow. Agent Bradley Matthews activated his body camera as he entered, the timestamp showing 9:23 a.m. His camera recorded his perspective as he scanned the classroom. Rows of desks with students, working in pairs, colorful bulletin boards, a teacher in a cardigan moving toward him with a confused expression. "Miss Washington," Matthew said, his body camera recording both his voice and Vanessa's face as she approached. Vanessa stepped away from the student desk where she'd been helping, her teacher instincts immediately assessing the situation. Armed strangers in her classroom, students already looking nervous, the disruption to learning that was occurring. "Yes, I'm Miss Washington. Can I help you? Did you check in at the office? We need to speak with you. Step away from the children." Agent Patricia Collins' body camera, recording from near the door, captured a wider angle of the classroom. The students beginning to look up from their fraction tiles. The concern on several young faces. Vanessa's defensive body language as she positioned herself between the agents and her students. The phrasing was odd, jarring. Vanessa's mind raced. Step away from the children. They were her students. This was her classroom. "I'm in the middle of teaching," she said, keeping her voice calm despite her confusion. "Who are you? What is this about?" "Federal agents," Matthew said, his camera recording his own hand gesture toward his colleagues who had positioned themselves near the door. We have questions about your immigration status. You need to come with us now. Agent Robert Chen's body camera, recording from his position by the classroom door, captured the moment when Vanessa's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. The camera showed several students in the foreground who had stopped working on their fractions, watching the exchange with growing concern. Immigration status. I'm a teacher at this school. I've worked here for 12 years. I'm an American citizen. You can't just walk into my classroom during instructional time. Matthew's camera recorded him taking a step closer to Vanessa. Several students had now stopped working entirely, watching the exchange. 9-year-olds are perceptive. They could sense that something was wrong, that their teacher was upset, that these strangers with guns on their belts represented some kind of threat. "Ma'am, we're not asking," Matthew said, his body camera audio picking up the edge of authority in his voice. "You're coming with us for questioning about your status. Should federal agents be allowed to arrest teachers in front of their students without verifying the situation first? Comment below, because what happened next would traumatize 23 children and expose how enforcement priorities can completely override the welfare of kids." "I'm not going anywhere without speaking to my principal," Vanessa said firmly. She moved toward her desk phone, but Colin's body camera recorded her stepping into Vanessa's path, blocking her from reaching the phone. "Ms. Washington, don't make this difficult," Colin said, her camera recording Vanessa's face from just a few feet away. "We have authority to detain you for verification of immigration status. You can cooperate, or we can place you under arrest in front of your students. Your choice." Chen's camera, still recording from the doorway, captured the wider scene. Vanessa, between two agents, 23 student faces now all turned toward the front of the room, several children's expressions showing visible fear. One girl had her hand raised as if wanting to ask a question, but too scared to speak. Vanessa looked at her class. 23 faces now all turned toward her, fractions forgotten, fear visible in their expressions. Matthew's camera caught her glancing toward a boy named Jamal, her face showing concern that was clearly for her students rather than herself. "There are children here," Vanessa said, her voice shaking now with a mixture of fear and anger. "You're scaring my students. Whatever you think I've done, whatever this is about, it can wait until lunch or after school. I demand to see a warrant or speak to the principal before I go anywhere." Matthew's body camera recorded him pulling handcuffs from his belt, the metal glinting in the classroom's fluorescent lighting. "You can speak to your principal from our office. Turn around. Hands behind your back. No." The word came out louder than Vanessa intended. Colin's camera captured several students jumping at the sudden volume. One girl starting to cry. A boy near the front pushing his chair back from his desk in alarm. "This is my classroom. These are children. You can't do this here." But Matthew's camera showed his hand reaching out, grabbing Vanessa's arm, spinning her around with unnecessary force. Chen's camera from the doorway captured the moment from a distance. The teacher being forcibly turned around, students gasping, several starting to cry. One boy jumping up from his desk and shouting words that the body camera audio clearly recorded. "Leave her alone." "It's okay," Vanessa tried to say to her students, her voice captured on all 3 body cameras as her hands were forced behind her back. "It's okay. Everything will be fine. Just stay in your seats. Be good for whoever comes to." "Quiet," Matthews ordered, his camera recording his own hands snapping the handcuffs shut around Vanessa's wrists with a sharp click that the audio picked up clearly. Colin's body camera captured the classroom scene from her angle near the front. 23 fourth graders watching their teacher being handcuffed, some crying openly now. One girl with her hands over her ears rocking in her seat. A boy who had crawled under his desk, faces showing shock and fear and confusion. "Ms. Washington didn't do anything wrong," a girl named Sophia shouted, her voice high and scared, clearly audible on all 3 body cameras. "Why are you arresting her?" "Yeah, leave our teacher alone," another student added the plea, captured on Matthew's camera, as he began walking Vanessa toward the door. Chen's camera recorded the exit from his position by the door. Matthews guiding Vanessa forward, Collins following behind. Students starting to stand up from their desks, despite having no adult telling them what to do. Several children calling out to their teacher, others crying, the chaos of a classroom that had just lost its sense of safety and order. The hallway footage from Chen's body camera showed other teachers hearing the commotion and stepping into their doorways. A female teacher gasped when she saw Vanessa in handcuffs, the sound clearly picked up on the audio. A male teacher immediately pulled out his phone, making a call. probably to the office. Matthew's camera recorded Principal Rodriguez running down the hallway, her heels clicking rapidly on the tile floor, her face showing shock and anger. What's happening? What are you doing with one of my teachers? Federal immigration matter, Matthew said, his camera recording his own continuous walking, not stopping for the principal. She'll be processed at our facility. Immigration? Vanessa is American. She's been background checked, fingerprinted, everything. You can't just take her. Rodriguez was trying to keep pace with the agents, her voice rising, captured clearly on the body camera audio. Colin's camera recorded Vanessa's profile as she tried to turn her head back toward the principal. Call the district office, Vanessa managed to say, her voice strained. Call my union rep. Tell my students I'll be back. Tell them I'm okay. But she wasn't okay. Chen's camera captured the moment they exited the building. The bright sunlight after the indoor fluorescent lights, the parking lot with its painted lines and speed bumps, and the black SUV where Vanessa would be placed in the back seat, still in handcuffs, still wearing the cheerful teacher cardigan she'd put on that morning because it had pockets, perfect for keeping dry erase markers, and the small stickers she gave students for good work. Matthew's camera recorded the view from the front passenger seat as they drove away, the school growing smaller in the side mirror, Rodriguez standing in the parking lot with her phone to her ear, other teachers emerging from the building to see what had happened. Back in the classroom, chaos had erupted. While no body cameras recorded what happened, after the agents left, witness statements would later describe 23 traumatized 9-year-olds crying, some shouting, several having left their seats to cluster together, seeking comfort. A substitute teacher rushing in completely unprepared for the scene she encountered. At the HSI detention facility, all 3 body cameras continued recording as Vanessa was processed. Matthew's camera showed the intake desk where her information was entered into computers. Colin's camera recorded Vanessa being photographed and fingerprinted. Chen's camera captured the property inventory, Vanessa's teacher ID badge, her car keys, her wallet with her driver's license, clearly showing she was born in Chicago, her phone already accumulating missed calls. I'm a U.S. citizen, Vanessa said, her voice captured on Matthew's body camera as he stood nearby during processing. I was born at Cook County Hospital. I have a social security number. I have a passport. I've been background checked by the Illinois State Board of Education. Everything about my citizenship has been verified multiple times. The processing officer typed without looking up, her bored expression captured on Colin's camera. That'll all be verified. Just processing you for now. Verified by who? And when? I have students who just watch me get arrested. I have a classroom that's unsupervised. I have parents who are going to panic when they hear about this. How long is this going to take? No one answered. Chen's camera recorded Vanessa being led to a holding area, her shoulders slumped, her teacher cardigan wrinkled, her face showing exhaustion and disbelief. The body cameras were deactivated during the waiting period, but were reactivated when Vanessa was released at 6:47 p.m., nearly 9 hours after being arrested. Matthew's camera recorded the moment she was handed back her belongings, her hands shaking as she signed the release forms, her face showing the toll the day had taken. Meanwhile, word had spread far beyond the school. Parents had been notified that there had been an incident in Miss Washington's classroom, and had arrived throughout the day to pick up their children. Principal Rodriguez had fielded calls from the district superintendent, from the school board, from local media who had gotten wind of the story from parents. And one of the students' parents who had witnessed part of the arrest from the hallway had recorded a portion on her phone and uploaded it to social media. But it was the body camera footage obtained later through legal proceedings that would prove most damning. 3 different angles showing every moment of a teacher being arrested in front of her students, showing the fear on children's faces, showing the complete disregard for the educational environment and children's welfare. The lawsuit filed 3 weeks later was comprehensive. Vanessa Washington versus United States Department of Homeland Security, Agent Bradley Matthews, Agent Patricia Collins, Agent Robert Chin et al. The complaint alleged violation of Fourth Amendment rights, false arrest, intentional infliction of emotional distress on both Vanessa and her students, violation of educational environment, and deprivation of rights under color of law. The evidence was extraordinary. The body camera footage from all 3 agents showed everything from multiple angles. The entry into the classroom, the disruption of instruction, Vanessa's reasonable request to contact her supervisor being ignored, the handcuffing in front of traumatized children, the chaos left behind. The agents had recorded their own misconduct in perfect detail. Additional evidence included statements from child psychologists who had evaluated Vanessa's students. Multiple children showed signs of trauma, nightmares, anxiety, difficulty concentrating, fear of authority figures. One girl's anxiety disorder had worsened significantly. A boy who had previously experienced trauma had regressed in his healing. Another student had become withdrawn and depressed. The anonymous tip that had triggered the arrest was revealed during discovery. Someone had called claiming there was an illegal immigrant teacher at Oakwood Elementary. No name was given. No specific information provided. Just a racist assumption that agents had acted on, without any verification, without checking with the school, without considering the impact on children. The case went to trial 16 months after the incident. The federal courtroom was packed with teachers, parents, students now in 6th grade, but still affected by what they'd witnessed, and education advocates. Vanessa testified for 2 days, describing her career, her dedication to her students, and the horror of being arrested in front of them. "I've had students ask me if I'm going to be taken away again," she told the jury, tears streaming down her face. "I've had parents transfer their children to other classes because the kids are afraid it will happen again. I've had 9-year-olds ask me what they did wrong to make the police take me away." How do you explain to a child that their teacher was arrested for no reason except the color of her skin? Several of her former students gave videotaped depositions, now 10 and 11 years old, but still remembering every detail. "I thought Ms. Washington was going to jail," one boy said. "I thought I'd never see her again. I didn't understand what was happening." Principal Rodriguez testified about the chaos that day, about trying to calm terrified children, about dealing with frantic parents, about the impossible task of explaining why federal agents had violated every school protocol to arrest a teacher with no justification. The body camera footage was played multiple times during the trial. Each viewing was more disturbing than the last. The jury watched from Matthew's perspective as he grabbed Vanessa's arm. They watched from Colin's camera as children began to cry. They watched from Chen's camera angle as the classroom descended into chaos. They heard the audio of students pleading for their teacher, heard Vanessa trying to calm her students, even as she was being handcuffed. The defense tried to argue the agents were following protocol for immigration enforcement. The argument was eviscerated when Vanessa's attorney showed that a single call to the school's HR department would have immediately verified her citizenship and prevented the entire incident. What protocol allows arresting a teacher in front of children without any verification? Vanessa's lead attorney demanded during cross-examination of Matthews. What protocol values enforcement so highly that traumatizing 24 9-year-olds is acceptable? What protocol ignores basic common sense? And if such a protocol exists, whose body camera footage shows anyone following it? Because all I see in these videos is chaos, fear, and the destruction of children's sense of safety. Matthews had no good answers. None of the agents did. They had received a tip, had acted on it without verification, had ignored reasonable requests to contact school administration, and had traumatized children in pursuit of an arrest that was wrong from the beginning, and they had recorded every moment of their misconduct on their own body cameras. The jury deliberated for 14 hours. When they returned, their verdict was clear. The defendants were liable on all counts. The damages award was substantial, $15.88 million, total $5.3 million in compensatory damages for Vanessa for emotional distress, damage to her career and reputation, and violation of her constitutional rights. $10.5 million in punitive damages, calculated to send a message that violating teachers' rights in front of their students would carry severe consequences. Vanessa sat quietly as the verdict was read, surrounded by colleagues, parents of her former students, and the children themselves, now older, but still bearing the scars of what they'd witnessed. All 3 agents were terminated. HSI announced new training guidelines requiring verification before arrests in schools, mandatory notification of school administration, and prohibition on arrests in front of children except in extreme circumstances. The policy changes specifically reference the need for agents to consider the welfare of children and the sanctity of educational environments. Vanessa returned to teaching, though she transferred to a different school where the memories weren't as painful. She used part of her settlement to establish a fund for trauma counseling for students affected by law enforcement actions in schools. The body camera footage became required viewing in education law courses and law enforcement training programs. A stark example of how enforcement priorities can override the welfare of children when agents don't think through the consequences of their actions. The 3 different camera angles provided a comprehensive view of how a routine morning in a 4th grade classroom could be transformed into trauma in a matter of minutes. And at Oakwood Elementary, Vanessa's former classroom has a plaque now, a place of learning and safety for all students. It's a quiet reminder that classrooms should be sanctuaries, and that the adults we trust with our children deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, not dragged away in handcuffs while kids watch in terror, all while cameras record every moment of the violation. If you believe teachers deserve protection, that children's welfare should come before enforcement priorities, and that citizenship verification should happen before arrests, hit subscribe, because Vanessa's story proves that sometimes the most vulnerable victims of constitutional violations aren't the adults directly targeted, but the children who witness injustice and learn that their safe spaces can be violated without consequence. And sometimes the evidence that exposes the injustice comes from the very cameras the agents wore while committing